What's going on, congregation? It's the Motor Minister Armany DePaul, and welcome to another episode of the Motorsport Ministry, the home for all the latest hot takes in the racing world. Today, we're going to be talking about Josh Berry going over to the 4 car. Is it really going to improve Stewart-Haas Racing? We'll be talking about Alex Palou and how I was dead wrong about him this year. And then we'll wrap things up by talking about Sergio Perez and his recent struggles over at Red Bull Racing. So without any further ado, let's begin. All right. So I think we've all in our lives have made some questionable decisions, predictions, anything. All of us have in our life. And so have I. I'll be frankly honest. Like I said, everyone has. And I've made some really boneheaded predictions a lot of times than not. Just go ask my friend NASCAR opinion about what I predicted the Colts would do last year. And let's just say it was a lot better than 4-12 and 1, though we did get our franchise quarterback at the end of the day. So one of my predictions for this year for the IndyCar season, and I mentioned it on an episode in the past, is that I didn't think that Alex Palou would have that great of a season. I thought that with it being a lame duck year, Chip Ganassi, last year, the distraction, it looks like they caught up to the team. He nearly went winless as the defending champion. So I thought that this year would kind of be a wash, especially because it looks like this is going to be, barring something crazy going on or some chance of fate, that this is going to be the last time that we see Alex Palou in a Chip Ganassi racing car. And I thought that, okay, he won a race at the Indy GP. Maybe he grabs another win somewhere, but he'll probably finish anywhere from 5th to 7th in points. He really won't be that much of a factor. Boy, howdy, was I dead wrong. Let me just say that. So if you haven't been watching IndyCar recently, it's basically the Alex Palou show. If you don't believe me, let me just go and read Alex Palou's stats for the 2023 season. I have them pulled up right now. It's currently looking at them right now. So currently in 8 races in the IndyCar season, Palou has 3 wins, 4 podiums, 3 fastest laps, and 0 DNFs, and an average finish of 3.5, and is currently leading the championship by over 74 points. Folks, okay. I have my reasonings for believing why Palou really wasn't going to do much. And again, that's because, last year was not a good year at all. I remember thinking constantly last year, I'm like, he doesn't have the pace. He's not up front. I think he didn't only have 1 or 2 podiums on the year. He didn't really do much last year. And I was thinking, okay, he's kind of stuck at Ganassi because he really doesn't have a choice. I'm thinking that, he's probably just going to mail in this year and then move on to McLaren next year. But really, it's been the exact opposite, as a matter of fact, because again, look, 3 wins. He's nearly won half of the races this year. He's been on the podium for half of the races this year. He leads the series in wins, podiums, and fastest laps. And he leads the league in DNFs with 0, and he leads the series in average finish with a 3.5. Folks, Palou right now, let's compare this to his 2022 season. So last year, he had 1 win, and that came at the final race of the season. He had 6 podiums, which he's currently on track to beat that. He had 3 fastest laps, which Palou's already matched that. And he had an average finish of 8th, and he had 1 DNF. Currently, Palou has an average finish nearly 5 positions better than he did last year. And last year, Palou finished 5th in the standings, and he came in as the defending champion. So let's take a look at his championship season. So in 2021, that's when when he won his first championship. That year, he had 3 wins, 8 podiums, 3 fastest laps, and at an average finish of 7.31. So currently, Palou has already matched his wins. He's on pace to beat his podium best. He's already matched his fastest laps. He already had, by the way, he had 3 DNFs in his championship season. Right now, Palou has 0. And his average finish is currently on track to be 4 positions better. Palou was on track to have his best season to date. And again, I personally didn't see this coming because even on this Ganassi team, I thought Dixon would be stronger. I thought Ericsson would be stronger because Ericsson came on as a championship contender last year, and Dixon is always a championship contender. I thought that Joseph Newgarden, I mean, Newgarden's still in the hunt, but I thought Newgarden would be a factor. I thought Will Power would be a factor because he's a defending champion. And I personally thought Colton Herta would do better. Weirdly, I was wrong on that. And I thought Aaron McLaren Paddle Award would be better. But right now, Palou has just taken everyone and he just put them out to the woodshed. He is putting a Max Verstappen like numbers if we're going off an IndyCar kind of perspective. Now, is Palou winning all but 2 races of the season? No. IndyCar is way too competitive to do that. But still, to have half of the races on the podium, folks, the podium is 3 spots. And IndyCar is widely considered one of, if not the most competitive field in motorsports. He's been on the podium half of the races this season. That is mightily impressive. He's won nearly half of all the races this season with 3 wins already in 8 starts. And he's won the last 2 races in really different ways. Detroit, he dominated, and the race in Road America just yesterday. I mean, Palou had to wrestle it away from Colton Herta, who looked like he was just going to cruise to a win, and Palou had to snag victory from the jaws of defeat, and he did that. And keep this in mind, folks. Think about where this team was last year with all the controversy, with court and lawsuits going on involving Palou and Ganassi, and look where they are now. You would think that never had happened. And I was watching a video from David Land, one of, if not the top IndyCar guy on YouTube. And he mentioned something that, even thinking about it now, I agree. We're probably never going to see this combination again. Again, barring something crazy happening, Palou is out of the 10. There's no other way to describe that. I mean, even if he and Ganassi were on good terms, you think the sponsors for the number 10 really enjoyed seeing that their flagship driver was doing everything in his power to get out of the ride? Like, the writing is on the wall. Again, barring something crazy going on, Palou was out of the 10. So to see, this is easily the best combination in IndyCar right now in terms of driver, crew chief, strategist, team, you name it. This is the best team in IndyCar by a country mile. They're better than all the other Ganassi guys. They're better than all the Penske guys, and they're better than all the Arrow McLaren guys, and they're certainly better than all the Andretti drivers. I mean, Palou literally took a near guaranteed win from Colton Herta right away from it. Just like that. And we're probably never going to see this combination again. And barring a second half collapse, the likes of which we never seen in IndyCar racing before, Palou's going to win this championship. In fact, I'm willing to put a bet out that I think Palou is going to be the first IndyCar champion in feels like nearly a decade to clinch the championship with a race to spare. Because right now, I have no reason to think otherwise. Who's going to stop him? No one has the speed that Palou has, and no one has the consistency Palou has. Now, maybe Ericsson steps up, maybe Dixon stares it up, but Ericsson is, I don't think he's really a championship driver. And Dixon, I don't even think he's won yet this year. Power's fallen off a cliff this year. He may go winless as a defending champion. Andretti is nowhere, and Arrow McLaren is 50-50. So who's going to stop Alex Palou? So, again, a season that I personally thought that would just be a lame duck season for Palou that would kind of just be tossed to the wayside in his career, he's completely flipped that on its head and turned it currently into the best season of his career. So that just shows how unpredictable motorsports can be. You may think that, look at Aston Martin this year. Who would have predicted this year that Aston Martin would be the second best team in F1? No one. And look where we are. Who would have predicted last year that Trackhouse would be one of the top 3 teams of the garage on the NASCAR side of things? No one. And let's be honest here, folks. How many of you predicted that Alex Palou would be this dominant or this clear of the championship this year? Or as the clear championship favorite? I guarantee you not a lot of you. I certainly didn't. I thought he'd have basically a lame duck year. But here Alex Palou is proving me wrong. And turning what I thought would be kind of just a mid-season in his career to easily the best season in his career. So Stewart-Haas Racing has an announcement that's going to be going on Wednesday, and there's a couple of reports that already come out that's saying that it's going to be that Josh Berry, current Xfinity driver for the number 8 JRM car, is going to be taking over the 4 car, replacing Kevin Harvick, who is of course retiring this season. Now, I'm going to talk about this in a couple ways. First, going to talk about it from Berry and then the team. For Josh, first of all, I'm going to give my overall grade on this whole move Berry to the 4. So I personally believe that Josh Berry going to the 4, I would give it a B to B plus. Now you might be thinking, why don't I give it an A and maybe even an A minus? Because I don't think anyone's going to grade it as an A plus, but they're maybe not even an A. But there might be some people out there who may flirt to give it around an A mark. And, we like to give, gradings in terms of, like, oh, silly season or free agency. I personally give this a B or a B plus. And the main reason is a couple things. I'll start with the positives and then I'll go with the negatives. Number one, I do think that Josh Berry is a very good driver. Borderline great. I don't think he's a top tier driver, but I think he's a very good driver. Really, I would put him on the same pedestal as Ryan Preece. And in a lot of ways, I think that they've had a very similar starts to their careers, if you will. I mean, Berry started off with a couple part-time starts in Xfinity. He made the most of it. He won a couple races. Ryan Preece had a couple part-time starts in Xfinity. He made the most. He won a couple races in those starts as well. Preece, he got into the Cup Series a little bit quicker, obviously with JTG, but those weren't the best cars at the time, so he never really made the most of it. Though for a large portion of his rookie season back in 2019, he was people thought he actually would be able to beat Hemrick for the Rookie of the Year, who was in a much better RCR car, or what should have been a much better RCR car. Then he got Berry moving over to the 4 car. Again, I think he's a good driver. The problem is, and the reason I don't give the Berry move an A, is because I don't even think Berry's going to be the best driver at Stewart-Haas Racing. I think once Kevin Harvick retires, you have to give that title to Chase Briscoe. I mean, now you might be thinking, there are some people out there who might think that Josh Berry is a better driver than Chase Briscoe. But to those people, I say, what do you have to back it up? In terms of their best overall seasons, I mean, Briscoe's best season in Xfinity, he managed to get 9 wins. Berry's best season in Xfinity, I believe he only got 2 or 3. Now, both made the Final Four, both finished 4th in the standings that year. But Briscoe has shown that if you give him the winning car, he could just go out and just flat out smack the field. Again, he did that in Xfinity in a pandemic year, might I add, with no practice and no qualifying. And he still won 9 races that year. I don't think we really fully gravitate to how impressive guys like Kevin Harvick and Chase Briscoe and I believe Zane Smith and these kinds of guys who did what they did in the pandemic year, a year where just complete uncertainty, to go out and just dominate the field. Even the champions like Sheldon Creed and Chase Elliott to do what they did in a season like they had, I think that's mightily impressive. And Briscoe, we have to give him credit where credit is due, because we probably forget that considering he's been running 25th pretty much all but one season in his Cup Series career. That season, of course, being last year. But even then, Briscoe's shown if you give him decent equipment, he can nearly make the Final Four. And here's the thing about Josh Berry. Here's why I say that in terms of Chase Briscoe, I think he's a better driver than Josh Berry. Chase Briscoe's a driver that I think if you give him the car, I think he'll be a consistent playoff driver and consistently in the round of 12 to round of 8. And I can see him making 2 to 4 Final Fours in his career. I don't think he's ever going to be a top 5 driver in the field. I think, guys like Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, William Byron, Christopher Bell, Ross Chastain, just to name a few, are just a league ahead of him. For me personally, I think Briscoe's in that league below. But I can see Briscoe making a Final Four once in a while. I personally can't see Josh Berry ever making a Final Four. Again, barring just craziness going on, which it is NASCAR, it is shown it can happen. I can't see Berry making a Final Four just off of pure pace. And that's another thing we have to go into, and that is the pace aspect. Now, from a story, I think this is an A+. I think the Josh Berry story getting to Stewart-Haas Racing is an A+, because he doesn't really bring funding. He solely got the ride basically off of talent. And of course, being basically the protege to Dale Earnhardt Jr. doesn't hurt, but he got all of his opportunities because of his skill and his talent. I think the story of Josh Berry in a sport and a league where, where it feels like most of the drivers coming up nowadays have some semblance of funding, and that's why they get their ride. To see a guy like Josh Berry have almost no funding and get his ability and get his opportunity off of only talent, I think that's an A to an A+ story. But going back to what I said before, in terms of the actual car, the move, I think it's more of a B to a B+. I think this can turn into an A. And this is going to be really interesting. And I got to be really careful on how I say this here, because I don't think the move Berry going to SHR is really going to turn the program around. I don't think anyone's expecting Berry to do what Kevin Harvick does when Harvick ends up leaving, which is take which has been shown to be 20th place machinery into the top 5. I don't think Berry's going to do that. He doesn't strike me as that kind of driver that can really elevate his equipment. What I do think is going to be important is that 10 car. What happens with that 10 car? Now, I believe I've been on the record of saying that I think the 10 car should just shut down. I think they should just go to 3 cars and focus on those cars, because they have the drivers and they do have the crew chiefs, which tells me it's an equipment issue, which tells me it's the engineers to personnel issue. So they gotta divert. They gotta, in my opinion, what they gotta do is shut down a car, go down to 3 cars, and focus on those 3 cars. That's what Roush did, and now they're starting to reap the rewards from it. And you might be thinking, oh, well, what about Harrison Byrne, who could bring Dex Imaging? Or what about Eric Almirola with Smithfield Foods? They're going to bring all the sponsorship and all the money. Well, there's a constant saying in motorsports, and that constant saying is the more money that you have, the better off you're going to be, because the money is what makes the equipment. Well, the money isn't making Stewart-Haas Racing's equipment, because I don't see where the sponsorship money is going. The 10 car is one of the worst cars on the grid in the field. Where's the sponsorship money going? I would expect those bacon bucks to at least be better than 25th or 26th in points. So the sponsorship dollars, it's not doing anything for the team. Now, maybe if they pull that sponsorship funding, they go to like 30th in points, but there are times where the team is running worse than Rick Ware Racing. Yeah, that funding isn't doing anything to the team, folks. I think Stewart-Haas Racing is better off signing Berry and pulling the 10 and focusing on the 4, the 14, and the 41. And they even make some money off of selling the charter. And then boom, then there's your money excuse that's basically gone, because Stewart-Haas is going to make nearly $30 million off of one charter alone. So going back to the Josh Berry thing, how do I think he will do next year? I want to say he'll do better than what the team is doing right now, but frankly, I really have no reason to say otherwise. I think with Rodney Childress still being the crew chief of the 4, which it was confirmed he will stay on as a crew chief for the 4, I think the 4 car is going to perform slightly better than the rest of the team. I think Berry is going to be right in the middle between where Briscoe runs and where Almirola and Priest runs. So let's say 20th to 21st in points, because Briscoe was anywhere from 15th to 19th in points. So I'll say Berry's going to be anywhere from 19th to 22nd in points. And then obviously the other 2 SHR cars will probably be somewhere in the back of the pack. But let's go back to grades. In terms of the move, I think it's a B to a B+. In terms of the story, a driver who brings no funding, but has a lot of talent and made it to the top of talent alone, I think that story for Josh Berry going to Stewart-Haas Racing is easily an A grade. All right, so I made an episode a couple months ago talking about how what I thought Sergio needed to do to have a shot at competing for the world championship against Max Verstappen. And bottom line is, I said that Sergio would have to win all the street course races because that was his strength, because I think Max would basically take the rest of the races. Because let's be honest here, folks. Yeah, Red Bull didn't look 20 miles ahead of the field in Canada, but they're still clear-cut away the best team in the field. I mean, Max has led every single lap since the Miami Grand Prix, or like since the last 10 laps of the Miami Grand Prix. Max has led every single lap since. I have no reason to believe Red Bull is going to be stopped anytime soon. So you would think that Sergio has basically been right on his tail, but the fact of the matter is that Sergio has been pretty abysmal for the past couple weeks. In fact, ever since his win at Baku, it's been kind of downhill for the driver of the number 11 Red Bull. I mean, so let's go over Sergio Perez's results so far. So obviously he finished second in Bahrain. He won at Jeddah from pole, and he led all but 3 laps. He started dead last in Melbourne, finished 5th. He won Baku, yeah. And he obviously finished second in Miami. But his last 3 results, so Sergio Perez's last 3 races have really been alarming. Started 20th in Monaco, DNF'd out of Monaco with 2 laps to go. Not good, especially if you come out and say that this is the most confident you've been in your chances to win a championship in your career. Then we go to Spain. Qualifies 11th, doesn't even make it out of Q2. That's alarming. The best car on the grid, you can't even make it out of Q2. He manages to finish 4th, so about 35 seconds back on Max, so not terrible. Go on to Montreal, the latest race. Doesn't make it out of Q2 again. And he only finishes 6th, nearly a minute behind his teammate. Yeah. Folks, Sergio has been on a terrible run so far. I mean, let me just read more of the overall stats. So, currently Sergio has 2 wins on the year. He has 4 podiums, and he has an average start at 8.8. Now, let's pay attention to that 8.8 average start. You want to know who has a better average start currently than Sergio Perez? Let's just take Max Verstappen out of it. Fernando Alonso, Lewis Hamilton, Carlos Sainz, George Russell, Charles Leclerc, and Esteban Ocon. All cars and all drivers all cars that are significantly worse than Sergio Perez's, and yet he's qualifying behind them on a consistent basis. That's not good. Well, it's not about where you start, it's about where you finish. Finish is where the points are awarded at the finish. So where does Sergio look in terms of the finishes? Well, his average finish is a 4.6. Who has a better average finish besides Max Verstappen? Fernando Alonso, Lewis Hamilton. Again, 2 drivers who are in worse machinery than Sergio Perez. Now, I will put an asterisk to those drivers because those are 2 of the greatest drivers to ever race in Formula One. I will give them that. But when your car is consistently over a second faster than the 2, I would hope that your average finish is at least better than a 4.6. At least if Fernando and Sergio's average finishes were flipped, I'd say that's fair. But to have an average finish worse than Fernando Alonso and an Aston Martin that just now got good, and Lewis Hamilton and a Mercedes that's just now figuring it out. I mean, folks, Fernando Alonso has more podiums this year than Sergio Perez, and not by 1, but by 2. So Sergio has not been having a good time at Formula One. Now, to the people who say that, Sergio's seat's going to be on the hot seat, he's going to get replaced at the end of the year, I'd hold the brakes here. Because really, there's no one that's in contention for that Red Bull seat. Maybe if Lando Norris gets frustrated with McLaren and he sees the opportunity, then he takes that Red Bull seat. But that's the only driver I can really see right now taking that seat. Because if we look at the Red Bull Junior squad, I mean, Liam Lawson, he's been in F2 for the past couple years. He's not going straight to Red Bull. Yuki Tsunoda, yeah, he's improved, but I wouldn't say he's ready for a top flight Red Bull seat. So really, Sergio's main competitors he has to worry about in terms of replacing him, I would say he's fine. Yeah, he's got a contract, but he's had a contract before and they didn't honor the contract. talking about the Force India days or the Racing Point days, whatever name you want to use. But Sergio really does have to pick up the pace here because, again, if you've gone 3 races in a row and 4 out of the 8 races of the season, 4 out of the 8 races of the season, you can't even make it into Q2 when you have the best car on the grid, that is a major concern. So they got to find a way to fix that. Sergio has to find a way to fix that. Maybe they swap engineers, something, who knows, but they got to find a way to fix that. Because, yeah, Max is running away with the championship, but Red Bull's never finished 1-2 in the championship before. They had a chance last year and they couldn't capitalize on it. And you might be thinking, oh, Sergio is going to get second place pretty easily. Not necessarily. He's only 9 points ahead of Fernando Alonso in the standings. And if Sergio has another stinker and Fernando gets on the podium again, boom, Fernando takes second. And I have no reason why he would relinquish that. So they got to find a way to improve. Sergio has to get back to being more consistent because right now he is not having a good time at all. And that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed listening. Thank you guys so much for tuning in as always. You guys can find us on all major podcasting platforms, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeart Radio, iTunes, Amazon, you name it. You can also find us on YouTube as well, the Motorsport Ministry. Please leave a like, comment, share, subscribe, everything you name it. That will help the channel out a ton. If you guys want to follow me on social media, you can follow me on Twitter and TikTok at Motor Minister, where I post, some clips from the podcast. Have some good discussion, you name it. But thank you guys so much for tuning in as always, and we will see you in the next one.